Aita for ending a 3-year relationship because of a dog. Also, why can't people take Cynophobia seriously? I have to let go of my girlfriend, and her family and friends have access to my main account. For now, I will refer to her as my girlfriend since I am uncertain whether we are breaking up or not. Summary. My girlfriend adopted a dog despite being aware of my phobia towards them, insisted on keeping the dog, and dismissed my fear, ultimately leading to a situation where it feels like it has become a choice between the dog and me. I am a 29-year-old female, and my girlfriend is 24. We have been together for 3 years. Overall, our relationship has been healthy, with the occasional argument and bickering, which is common among couples, but nothing serious enough for me to question the relationship. She can be a bit spoiled, impulsive, and immature at times. Before we began dating, she was aware that I have a severe fear of dogs due to a traumatic experience in my childhood. My twin sister and I have relied on prosthetics since we were 3 years old, thanks to our neighbors' aggressive dogs that barked incessantly. One of their dogs leaped over the fence into our yard, unprovoked, and grabbed my sister by her ankle. I held on to her for dear life while the other dog attacked me, biting my arm. According to our mother, they dragged us 5 houses down, all while biting us and making horrifying noises. It wasn't until our mother intervened with a frying pan that the dogs were pulled back. Instead of stopping, they turned their aggression towards her. Neighbors rushed to help, and only then were the dogs restrained. My mother, who suffers from heart problems, was nearly overwhelmed. She had a heart attack during the chaos. My sister's leg was completely severed beyond repair, and I suffered an infection in my arm that led to amputation. The dogs were euthanized, and their owners faced charges. About 10 years later, the breed was banned due to similar incidents involving the injuries and deaths of children and the elderly. Since that incident, I have had an intense fear of dogs, regardless of their size, breed, or demeanor. While I don't panic or freak out when I see a dog, I will walk around them to avoid contact. If a dog ventures too close to my personal space, I freeze up, step back, and request the owner to pull the dog back. I do not harbor hatred for dogs or wish harm upon them. I'm simply afraid and want to keep my distance. Additionally, the entitled dog owners who bring their dogs into places that only permit service animals only exacerbate my anxiety. However, for the most part, my life is manageable. No one I know owns dogs or expects me to be around them. My girlfriend is my second romantic partner. My fear of dogs did not affect my first relationship, as my ex also had a fear of dogs due to a similar experience. My current girlfriend enjoys all types of animals, having been raised with cats. When we began dating, she agreed that if our relationship developed, dog ownership wouldn't be part of our future. Given our age difference, my girlfriend just graduated last year while I had already established a career. I was fortunate enough to purchase a home last year, while she was finding it tough to support herself due to insufficient pay and the need for extensive post-graduation training. I invited her to move in with me, promising a rent that was lower than the average rate. There were no significant issues during the first year, and we grew much closer while living together. She had a good rapport with my parents and sister, and I frequently go on fishing trips with her father, who is a single parent. My girlfriend, being an only child, is very close to her dad. Our families even discussed marriage until she unexpectedly brought a dog home. She presented it as a sweet surprise when I returned from work. Upon entering, I instantly noticed a foul odor. We have 5 fixed cats, 2 of which have kidney and bladder problems, so I know what cat urine smells like. This was something else entirely. My girlfriend emerged from the kitchen with a large, wolf-like white dog that barked as soon as she saw me. She explained that while at the shelter dropping off food that our finicky cats refused, she spontaneously decided to adopt this dog because he was older, had health issues, and we supposedly had the means to care for him. I stood there stunned, trying to process this as if it were some sort of joke or social media trend. She showed me the adoption paperwork, which already included my name on the microchip. I asked her to take the dog outside or to the guest room so we could talk in peace. Her expression changed abruptly. She took the dog to the guest room and said, "Well, you can just work on your issues." At that moment, I noticed all our cats were nowhere in sight. They were hiding under beds, shelves, and sofas. All 5 cats, 4 of which I owned before our relationship, and one we adopted together, had never encountered dogs before and were utterly terrified, puffed up with their tails fluffed and cowering in corners. As I attempted to talk with my girlfriend, the dog continued barking in the guest room. Even though she prepared potty pads, he still urinated on the carpet. I understood he was an elderly dog who had likely lived in the shelter for a long time, which could have caused discipline issues, yet his barking was incessantly aggravating. Every bark reverberated through the house, making it shake with the volume. Initially, I tried to address the situation calmly, but my girlfriend insisted on keeping this dog and advised me to seek therapy for my fear. I reminded her that this was my home, and I did not want a dog residing in it. She exclaimed that there was a no-dog stipulation in our lease, which struck me as childish and immature, especially since we didn't even have a lease. The dog kept barking, and both my girlfriend and I became stubborn, which eventually escalated into a heated argument. She insisted that I should try to get along with the dog, or she would move out with him. I firmly refused, saying I wouldn't touch the dog with a 10-foot pole. In a moment of rage, she told me to get over it, stating that being afraid of dogs wasn't a legitimate fear and called me a whiny baby. I decided to walk away, began packing my belongings, lured the cats from their hiding spots, and informed her that she had 5 days to leave my house with the dog. She merely sat there with her arms crossed, giving me a death stare. I then left with the cats to stay at my sister's place. Now it is 3 a.m. I left around 6 p.m. 2 hours later, I began receiving text messages and phone calls from my girlfriend, her family, and friends. I responded to a few messages. My girlfriend sent me information on local therapists who could help with my fears. Her father said he would take the dog if necessary and didn't comment further. However, her friends and some family members believe I overreacted. One even sent me photos of his dogs, insisting that they are cute and harmless. Ironically, that same person is terrified of spiders, so I replied with pictures of fuzzy spiders featuring their numerous eyes, which was petty, I admit, and he blocked me. My twin sister and parents support me, emphasizing that there is no need to address a dog phobia that doesn't significantly impact my life. The reality is that even if I were to manage my fear, I still wouldn't want a dog. I know I wouldn't be a responsible dog owner as I don't have the time to care for one. Though I find certain dogs to be charming, much like bears, dolphins, or snow leopards, I still do not wish to adopt one as a pet. I dislike issuing ultimatums, but it has come to this. It is the dog or me. Am I the asshole? I would appreciate any suggestions. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Story 2. Am I overreacting? Aita am a 16-year-old female planning on moving out. I am unsure how to begin this, but here I go. I'm a 16-year-old female planning to leave my parents' house when I turn 18. I am feeling stressed and exhausted dealing with my family constantly. I do not want to run away impulsively without any money, which is why I have decided to leave at 18 instead of 16. However, I am curious to know if I am overreacting or if my feelings are justified. I come from a 2-parent household with both parents actively involved in my life. I have 3 brothers, and I am the only girl. 2 of my brothers are adults, so there is no need to worry about them, but I do have a younger brother, aged 13, whom I love dearly. I am homeschooled and do not have any friends, nor am I seeking to make any. A day ago, I had my phone taken away because I accidentally burned dinner. I did not do it intentionally, yet I was yelled at, my belongings were confiscated, and I had to endure a lengthy rant from my mother about how much she can no longer tolerate me. I do not know if it is typical for a mother to constantly threaten to hit you over minor issues, but I encounter this nearly every day. I have been labeled as spoiled, selfish, lazy, mean, odd, and occasionally called derogatory terms. I have repeatedly been told that I am useless and irresponsible, that I ruin everything, and that my mother would not care if I ran away and ended up living on the streets. I have started to loathe my home life and now harbor resentment toward my mother. I remain silent, as speaking out is deemed backtalk, so I have decided to stop caring. For as long as I can remember, I have done most of the cleaning in our house and occasionally some cooking too. If I cook only for myself, I am labeled selfish and accused of mistreating my younger brother. They do not require him to do anything, but I am not angry with him because he is like my best friend. However, I am upset about the unfair treatment I receive. My mother frequently mentions him as her favorite son and places blame on me for everything that goes wrong in the household. She also insinuates that I will put her in a nursing home when she is older and that I will not care for her. I do not intend to take care of anyone when I move out because, at this point, I do not want any further contact with her. Fast forward to December of last year when I visited my cousin for 2 weeks. Suddenly, everyone claimed to miss me, which is typical. My family generally acts indifferent towards me until they need something. They do not check on me to see how I am doing. When I returned home from my vacation, it was back to the usual routine. On my first day back, I cleaned the kitchen as usual. Every dish was cleaned except for the pan that was soaking because it had hard cheese stuck to it. My mother made cheese rolls that day, so I had no choice but to soak the pan. The next morning, she attempted to get upset with me for the cheese being stuck in the pan, which I was soaking for that reason. I stood my ground and explained the situation to her. Additionally, she is not one to prepare anything in advance. She simply goes with the flow and blames me if something does not turn out right. While setting up for a family gathering, she wanted to make empanadas, knowing she had 2 weeks for preparation. We did not start until the day of the event, and then she became upset with me for not making pie crust. I informed her that pie crust is easy to make and that I had still managed to prepare 4 whole batches the day before. She, on the other hand, had done absolutely nothing. Moving on to our family day, where she coerces everyone into pretending to be a family for 6 hours. I despise it, and I managed to end that later. I sat in the kitchen and spoke with my father about my plans to move out and how he felt about it. Of course, she interrupted our conversation, chiming in with a, "Good, I can't wait," after I mentioned my excitement to move out. She then proceeded to lecture me on why I should stay home with them longer, insisting that I cannot stay with my dad forever. Now let me explain why I want to move out. For as long as I can remember, I have always been portrayed as the troublemaker in my family. As I grew older, my personality changed, which led my mother to dislike me more. She consistently talks about how much she misses the younger version of me, who was sweet and happy. Am I happy? No. Am I sweet? Quite the opposite. However, I am not heartless. Fast forward to when I was 13 years old, I began feeling sad and depressed. I believed I was in a safe environment, that is what they tell me, so I opened up about my feelings. The next day, I overheard her on the phone claiming that I was being dramatic. I ignored her for most of that day. She called me later, asking me to prepare a butter mixture for dinner, which I did before retreating to my room. She later emerged upset because I did not inform her that it was ready, understandably so. She approached me angrily, stating that I was not to ignore her and that she did not care if I was upset with her for calling me dramatic. She proceeded to push me repeatedly against the wall. On another occasion, she ordered water from Walmart that was delivered, and when my dad and brother brought it downstairs, a few days later, we discovered one of the bottles was broken and leaking. She became angry and yelled at both me and my brother, expressing her hate for us. There was also the time she asked me to do laundry. Later, she came downstairs to check if I had done it correctly, and in her eyes, I had not. She then repeatedly hit me on the head and back. We have metal pillars in our basement, and I was standing directly behind one. During this incident, the side of my head collided with the pole. This does not even account for the many times I was slapped in the face, leaving my ears ringing when I was ages 7 to 9. I recall this vividly because I was only 10 when I started 5th grade. In 5th grade, I had a small graduation party with my class, and my parents provided food. I distributed food and even brought some for my favorite teachers and faculty members whom I disliked. We still had leftover food, and when my teacher claimed he did not receive any, I offered him some, but he declined. By the end of the day, he told my mother I had not given him any food and tried to get me in trouble for sharing my leftovers with a few girls from a different class. I had classmates helping me pass out food, so he could have asked them for some or even taken some for himself as a teacher. As I walked back to the car with my mother, she told me I ruin everything. It shattered my spirit, and I held on to that feeling for years. Fast forward to when I was 15, sitting in the kitchen with my mother trying to help her cook. I did something she did not like, prompting her to say that no man would want to deal with me and that I should get a dog and die alone. This led to a physical altercation. I stood up to leave because I no longer wanted to hear her comments, and she dragged me back into my seat. I stood up and pushed her back. She initiated the physical contact first, without any reason, and shouted in her face. She smiled at me and laughed. I was emotional, but I refrained from pushing her further because of her arthritis, as I did not want to cause her any harm that could lead to a hospital visit. Eventually, she forced me back down into my chair, and my hands were on her arms while her hands were around my neck, with my foot on her knee where she suffers the most. Some days I should have just kicked her, but I didn't. After she released her grip on me, she warned that if I continued the fight, I would be kicked out. I was only 15. I was also told that she wished she had raised all boys instead. She even expressed, "I wish I had cousin's name instead of you, you are so boring." I realize this is disorganized, but am I overreacting? I just needed to share this, and I feel like I have reached my breaking point at this stage. Story 3. Am I the asshole for cursing out my best friend's wife in public? Am I the asshole for confronting my best friend's wife in public? I am a 32-year-old male who confronted my best friend's wife, who is 34, for attempting to engage in a sexual advance toward me. To provide some context, my friend and I have been working together for the past 6 years in the service industry. During the first 2 years of our friendship, we traveled to various locations for work. Throughout this time, I witnessed him marry his wife and become a father, and I was genuinely proud of the man he has become. While away for work, I occasionally socialized and sought out experiences with women since I was single, a behavior we used to share before he met his current wife. As time passed, both of us received promotions, which meant we traveled together less frequently, if at all. This brings me to the incident in question and the consequences that followed. My friend, whom I will refer to as Jay, was informed that he would have to travel to Tennessee for 2 weeks for work. Life continued normally, except I decided to visit a local bar that is quite popular in our area. I rarely go there because it is not my preferred environment. Upon entering, I noticed my friend's wife, whom I will call Anne, sitting at the bar with 2 other women. My immediate concern was for her child's whereabouts while she was at the bar. I approached the group, greeted Anne, and inquired if she had spoken with Jay that day. She replied that she had spoken to him earlier and mentioned she was going out with some friends. This was not unusual, as Jay had often told me he was fine with her going out since she didn't work and staying home with their child could be challenging for her. I introduced myself and shook hands with the other women before continuing on my way. I found myself drinking and playing pool with a random guy and a couple of younger women in their mid-20s. One of the women began flirting with me, while the other showed interest in the guy I was playing pool with. As my interaction with the flirty young woman progressed, Anne began approaching me, joking around and lingering nearby. I assumed she was using me as a distraction to avoid attention from other men. Since Jay is my friend, I chose not to intervene. As the evening progressed, she became increasingly touchy, to the point where the young lady I was trying to connect with told me she was leaving because, clearly you two have something going on. I attempted to clarify our relationship, but she wasn't convinced, so I said goodbye and started to exit the bar. As I was putting on my jacket, Anne wrapped her arms around my waist and expressed her desire to have sex with me, insisting that Jay would never find out. At that moment, I was furious and confronted her, labeling her a dirty individual for blocking my progress with another woman under the assumption that I would betray someone who has done so much for us. I then left the bar, aware that many were watching. Here's the situation. I intend to inform my friend about what happened. I am just conflicted about when and how to do so. Part of me hesitates to contact him while he is away because he should focus on his work without any additional stress. I also worry that he may doubt my account, as I myself would have never imagined Anne behaving this way, given how long I have known her. Reflecting on this leads me to question whether she has cheated on him previously, given how freely she made her comments to me. If anyone has been in a similar situation, I would appreciate your advice on how to handle it. I do not want to lose a friend over this, but I would want my friend to inform me if the roles were reversed. Thank you for reading. Update: here are the developments following my initial post. The next morning, when I arrived at the diner where I typically have breakfast before work, I found Anne waiting for me in the parking lot. She approached my car and wanted to apologize for her behavior from the previous night, mentioning that she had spoken with Jay about it. She claimed she had told him that I got drunk and that I misinterpreted her actions at the bar. She insisted she was not upset with me because I am a true friend to Jay and that she felt I was looking out for him. I questioned her motive for lying and stated that I planned to tell him the truth. She then asked whether I was truly Jay's friend and if I was looking out for him. Before I could respond, she acknowledged that the only misrepresentation was her stating I misunderstood her intentions and claimed she wouldn't mind if I informed Jay about our conversation that morning. As she would tell him, she came to apologize for placing me in that awkward position. She concluded with no hard feelings and walked away. I promptly called Jay to discuss everything, and he stated he believed me, expressing no anger toward either of us. He mentioned that they had previously discussed infidelity in a light-hearted exchange about who they would cheat with, and she had mentioned me because she was envious of the connection Jay and I shared, viewing me as an extension of him, which I found unusual. Jay remarked that he would choose to be with her younger sister. He added that he brushed off their earlier conversation because he believed I would never betray him. He then laughed, saying since he believes Anne genuinely attempted to engage with me, he plans to make a move on her sister when she returns home for spring break. I inquired if he thought she had cheated in the past, but he replied he didn't have the time or energy to dwell on that. He felt that if she had, it would either come to light or remain unknown, and in either case, he would move forward with his life, whether with her or on his own. As far as I am concerned, I am done with this situation, and it is no longer my concern. Knowing all of this, I now view Anne differently and will only interact with her when Jay is present.